As Middle East strategy and markets leader at PwC, Stephen Anderson has driven the strategy, growth, and market activation of the professional services firm in the Middle East. He's now focused on driving hypergrowth in the areas of ESG, technology alliances, and managed services. As PwC launches its Middle East CEO survey, Stephen has unique insights on how regional businesses are accelerating transformation in the current economic climate. And he joins us now. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Great. Fantastic to have you here, Rami.
Thank you. Tell us about the findings of this year's CEO survey.
Sure. So I guess at a global level, this is our 26th CEO survey and probably the most pessimistic, which is not surprising given what's happening around the world. But there's probably four key findings here in the region. The first one being this, we're a bit of an outlier. So in terms of confidence, our CEOs remain very confident in the region in growth. About 2/3 are very confident about growth in the region. The second big point that comes out is around transformation. So our CEOs recognize the need to transform. Yes, things are going well, but they can see that there's a need, given everything that's happening around the world, to be ready for things that may come at them. So they're looking at diversifying their products. They're looking at continuing to invest, continuing to do deals, and also retaining staff. I guess the third big point would be around doubling down on digital. So about 84% of our CEOs said they're going to invest in technology. And then probably the fourth and probably for me, probably the most positive of these is we're starting to act on climate change. So about 50% of our CEOs say we're going to look at climate change, we've looked at risks, and we've looked at the way in which we can change our products.
Taking that into account, there is a lot of optimism coming out of this region. How are Middle East businesses faring during the current economic environment? And would you say CEOs are concerned about the looming recession?
So it was interesting. Our CEOs are very aware of what's going on around the world. So around 82% of them said we expect to slow down globally. And actually, they were more pessimistic on the global economy than many CEOs around the world. That said, they're very confident about what's happening here in the region. And I guess that reflects on, Rami, what I tend to talk about is this sort of Goldilocks macroeconomic picture we have in the region. So obviously we've got these terrible supply side shocks that are hitting us. That's leading to commodity prices obviously going up. We've got this high dollar, high commodity price, which means we've got inflation under control. We're seeing growth. Saudi will be the strongest growing economy this year, or last year in 22 at 7%. And we expect to see that continue this year. So therefore, our CEOs, yes, they recognize what's going on around the world, but remain very confident in their own market compared to, say, in North America, where just 21% of CEOs were confident about growth.
It's wonderful to hear that these results are coming out of this region. And I'd like to know how Middle East businesses can really ensure their long-term viability, considering the macroeconomic and the geopolitical situation that we find ourselves in right now.
Yeah, so what was interesting in the global survey, so 4 out of 10 CEOs said they didn't think their business model would be viable in 10 years' time. I mean, that's quite a bold statement to make around what's happening in terms of the world, the way the world's changing. And that's the same here. I mean, our region is being reimagined in front of us. We're digitizing, decarbonizing, privatizing, localizing, and modernizing our society. And the CEOs have really jumped onto that. They recognize, yes, things are going quite well at the moment, but I need to transform. And therefore, where are they putting their efforts? They're saying, well, let's try and diversify our products. Let's try and be more efficient. And then what are they not slowing down? So in the rest of the world, we're seeing a slowdown in deal activity, a slowdown in investment, maybe letting people go. Here in the region, we're seeing continued investment. The M&A market and the IPO market remains very strong. And we're certainly not seeing people laying off staff. And indeed, the feedback from the CEOs is that they're making no plans to reduce salaries. So they're looking to sort of future-proof the business and invest in the business, ready for what may come. We're not immune from what happens around the world. They need to be ready.
Wonderful. And I want to get to salaries and employee retention in just a moment. But first, I'd just like you to elaborate on the key focus areas for CEOs in 2023.
So I think there's probably 2 big focus areas that came out of this. I think the first one has to be digital. So you saw the level of investment. We said the 84% are going to invest. What was really interesting was 2/3 of CEOs also said we're going to embrace automation, we're going to embrace the metaverse, we're going to embrace cloud. And we've seen here in the region on things like even metaverse, recently working and seen Saudi Tourism Authority launch their metaverse strategy in terms of encouraging people to visit Saudi Arabia. We've seen Dubai doing a lot in that area. On the cloud side of things, more and more of the global cloud players are setting up, and we're seeing our clients transform into cloud. So I think that big digital area is very strong. The second area I'd pick out would be the ESG and climate in terms of being a focus area. Listen, for our region, what was really good to see last year, the results in our CEO survey were a bit depressing, actually. Just saw the response on that. A sea change. And obviously COP27 helps, COP28 helps. And I think the other thing that helps is for ESG in our region, it's a real driver of transformation. So whether that's energy transition, whether that's moving to renewables, whether it's developing green hydrogen, developing new destinations, localizing supply chains, driving governance, all of these things are driving towards the transformation of our region. And you're seeing CEOs waking up to that and pushing their businesses in that direction.
And what can these CEOs do to retain talent and to attract the top talent to their firms this year?
So I think there's a war for talent out there, particularly in this region. I think there's many things that CEOs can do, but I think what really came across in the survey and what we're seeing is now a longer term view on development and lifetime learning. I think around 80% of CEOs said they were going to invest in upskilling. And I think being able to go to attract talent to say, this isn't at the sort of end of your career, you're going to come on a journey and we're going to invest in you, allow you to upskill, get into digital, get into ESG and some of these broader areas is what's attracting talent.
Wonderful optimism for the future. Congrats on another successful report and thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Remy.